telling it as it is. Today's News Talk, the world today.
It's all happening. Welcome back to the second hour. This is the world today. Nice to be with you too. And have a great guest coming up shortly, which we go right back to the days of TNT with Vikki Campion. Anyway, I'm going to play this clip. This goes for a little bit. It's got a great song to it. It's the this could almost be an anthem for the UK, because I have to tell you what we saw with the way the Patriots. How long will Patriots be treated as the enemy in the UK? All they want is their country back. And at the moment, we have Starmer, who says, if you don't like it, just walk out, leave us alone, something like that. The guy's Prime Minister. And speaking of our next guest, she understands what Prime Ministers need. It is not to treat their citizens, because they're all in partnership with all of the people of the UK. Don't treat them like damn dipshits. That's what he's doing. So I'll play this clip. To me, it could almost be the anthem. I think it's a magnificent song. And I've got to say, if you want to go and buy it, we've got the name of where you can buy the clip. It's on that actual video. Cam, can you play United?
Keir Starmer, I don't think you remember what you said. Let me remind you.
If you don't like the changes that we've made, I say the door is open and you can leave.
That's what you told the people of England. Your own people. The very men and women who built this land, who fought for its freedom, who carried its weight on their backs. You spoke like a ruler, not a servant. Like this nation was yours to give away and not ours to defend. But September 13th proved you wrong. We will not take your door. We will not walk away. We are not guests in our homeland. We are its heartbeat. You may sit in office, but the soul of this nation will never belong to you. It belongs to its people. And we will stand. We will march and we will rise together. United we stand. United we fight for our future. This is only the beginning.
Let this be a warning to those who bring the fight. You traded the cross for the crescent's might. Our awakening now fills you with dread. Now face the children of those who bled.
They storm the beaches under fire,
through smoke and blood, through mud and wire.
they held the line when hope had fled.
They were the men who fought and bled. We are the children of those who bled. We won't bow down, we'll fight instead.
The torch they pass still lights our way, and we will guard it come what may.
children of those who bled.
They gave their lives so we live free. Now their charge falls on you and me.
We fight for our daughters and for our sons. We won't stop fighting till the battle's won. We are the children of those who bled, born of heroes alive and dead.
The torch they pass still lights our way, and we will guard it come what may.
We are the children of those who bled.
Their blood runs strong through our veins.
Their courage lives in us, it will remain.
We warned you once, you should have fled.
Now face the children of those who bled. We are the children of those who bled, born of heroes alive and dead.
The torch they pass still lights our way, and we will guard it come what may.
We are the children of those who bled.
Absolutely brilliant. At WATpatriots.com, we are the children of those who bled. Vikki Campion is a journalist, farmer, rural commentator, dipped her toes with these rat bags called TNT. Well, TNT then. Vikki, what a great track that is.
What a great track, Mike. And honestly, I always feel that if I'm going to speak after British voices, my accent must sound so jarring for them. And I am very rural, and so that's how it sounds. So I do apologize in advance for everyone who's listening across the water.
That's right. Or even not across the water, anywhere in the world, because you know what our mantra is. We just go everywhere. But I mean,
That's right.
wasn't that a great song about standing up for the country that you belong to? And we are the children of those who bled. And to have a prime minister treating his people like that at the very start of it, you know where the door is basically. But it's not just Starmer. We look at our prime minister. I'd rather not, but we have to. Look at the politicians, and even from the Conservatives. I look at the what's his name, Hatton from Victoria, who's the opposition. What the hell has happened to our politicians? Can't they find anybody?
Well, the one thing I thought about was Chris Bowen when he was treasurer, and he was saying, he was talking about franking credits, and he was like, "Well, if you don't like it, don't vote for us." And so people didn't. They were like, "Well, okay, we won't." And that the one thing that I felt from watching that is, I've been speaking to a lot of young people recently, and they are so angry, Mike. They are so angry at what is being done to their country and their future opportunity. And I mean, I can see what's happening in the UK, and I feel like this is going to be happening in Australia as well, because these guys, they've just had enough. They can't seem to get a break. They can't buy a house. They can't get a job. One of my friends applied for a job recently, and he's been in comms for 20 years. It got rejected after 2 days, and they said, "I'm sorry, but we've had 400 applicants." we're dealing with mass immigration. We don't have the houses for people to live in. We don't have maternity units for people to give birth in. And yet we're still bringing over, more than 1,000 people a day. And then you see our government, uh, being the people in control of our statistics, instead of saying, oh, this is something that we need to address, they're going and they're attacking people like yourself and saying, oh, well, you're spreading misinformation. It's not 1,500 people a day. It's like, well, what is it then? How many people are we bringing over a day?
Yeah, it is terrible. And if you protest, if you if you look at the 70s and 80s, more of the 70s with the Vietnam War, terrible people, make them go and fight for the country, or something, send them away. But that stopped an unjust war. And the protests that we've had, whether it's, I have to tell you, whether it's for the Palestinians or whether it's for Australia, the majority, the vast majority, most of it is peaceful. Yet government does not want you to say anything about government, or whether it's state, local, or federal, and they're going to shut you down. And if you look at Julie Inman, e-safety commissioner, I'm going to protect you from all these terrible people. It's not going to just affect the children. They're going to, as the Conservative spokesperson on communication said recently, government needs to control the internet. I mean, where is government coming from? A politician should not say that. A politician should say, we work for them. How can we make it better, not more?
But Mike, they're getting away with this because our opposition is so weak that they're just so happy for, they're basically, our opposition is the weakest that it's ever been, I have to say. And they are so happy for Labor, whether it's at a state level, whether it's at a federal level, to run the agenda completely. And the people who are getting upset by it and saying, hang on, this isn't right, well, you're basically on your own. And it's pretty much turning into, you're trying to run campaigns on the smell of an oily rag by yourself and with whoever has the courage and the strength to stand up. And I know you've probably talked about the assassination of Charlie Kirk at length on this, but I will say a friend of mine, her daughter is 14 years old, and she wrote a piece which she sent to me, and I'm going to try and get published in the papers here for her. And she was talking about how she went to school and all of the other students were making fun of this death, and then that she goes to her classroom. This is in northern New South Wales. And she goes to her classroom, and there's her teacher was, mocking this death, and she's made this silent vow to herself: I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I am going to stand up. And I do think that this is what we're on the precipice of seeing. Is we're on the precipice of seeing people actually say, no, I'm not going to be cancelled anymore. I'm not going to be forced into silence anymore. I am going to stand up, and I am going to have my say. And if you want to fight me, then I will debate you, and I will be logical, and I will have this conversation with you, because I cannot be quiet any longer. And I think if there's any one good thing to come out of that, this such a heinous crime, I think that is the thing. If we've got 14-year-olds today who are willing to stand up and they're going to fight their teachers and they're going to fight their peers in the way that Charlie Kirk did, being, someone who was logical and someone who was just very straight and would debate people in that fashion. I think that is the best thing that we can hope for.
Tell me this, and full marks to this girl for doing what she's done and what she wants to do. Can you tell me how many are in her class?
I think she's got 3 classes and there's 30 in each.
Okay, so 30 kids and the teacher, so 31, 1 against 31. I have to say I admire the optimism, but if you look at that, 1 out of 31 is not laughing at someone being shot, murdered wife becoming a widow, kids without father, and all the good that this guy was doing. By the way, I didn't follow him very much at all. I knew who he
Well,
was. I thought he was pretty
neither
average.
did I, Mike. I actually did. Well, I mean, this is going to admit too much, but I actually wasn't aware of him at all until the his assassination, and then it was only after that that I was like, wow, this guy actually makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I was like, yeah, I didn't follow him. I didn't really know of him. And it's not a reflection of him. I mean, because as you know, I've done so much work for the opposition. And so we're banned from having TikTok on our phones. I think TikTok was his biggest platform. If we have TikTok on our phone, we can't access our email account. So it's
But
stuff like that. So that's why I
it's now
wasn't,
run by the Americans. They own it. Today it was
well,
in one of the
I
think it
didn't
was
know that.
yeah, they own it. There's 3 companies, and
Wow.
Jen and I are looking at these companies, but I would prefer I prefer the Chinese.
Chinese.
Terrible,
Well,
terrible.
that's it. But I
Um,
think that whoever that this has been a total own goal, because what's happened is you weren't following him and I wasn't following him, and now we're very much aware of what he was doing, and all they have done is amplified his message.
but the amplification has also come from. I mean, look at 31 were making fun of him being killed. I mean, and look, this, I know Barnaby's, I mean, I see the big lawn behind you and stuff, so I presume he's out mowing the grass, not. Um,
He's-
and I'm right on, no, he has one of those push things, but he must sort of drop his shoulders and go, man, what's happened to other people? Why aren't they becoming more involved? Because a politician, if he's a good one, requires feedback from his constituents. And if you're looking at that girl with 31 teacher and 30 students, it's a bad omen, I think.
I'll get in trouble for saying this, but honestly, I do feel like we're fighting a war with the world's weakest army sometimes. Like, I think that, you know, there's so many people who want you to put forward what's happening to them, whether it's like Mike, I talk a lot about the renewables rollout, people having their land confiscated, their business operations confiscated for transmission lines, whether it's people who have had massive impacts on their properties due to solar or wind installations, or being part of a renewable energy zone, not like just like a farm like this one. You can't, if my neighbor were to build a wind farm right there, I can't insure it. I can't insure my farm because there's no insurer that will grant me insurance that will be able to cover the cost of a wind farm. Do you understand? And so it's stuff like that. And then when it comes down to actually, okay, well, I need you to put your name and your face to this, and that's not there. And we are losing the fight because that's not there. And there's this fear, I think, from people where they're like, well, I don't want to be cancelled and I don't want to stand up. And this is where you do have to say, no, I'm going to be like that 14-year-old girl in the classroom in Ballina, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, no, I am going to do this. I am going to speak up and I will debate you. And you're not going to agree with me, and that's okay. But I just want to debate you in a respectful manner.
Just the looking at that climate risk report, and if you looked at it, now we played. I was going to find Monty Python, but I looked for Benny Hill. Couldn't do that either. But we played the Channel 7 thing, which is it was almost like a Stephen King production. The world is doomed. Australia is doomed. Da-dum, da-dum. Couldn't find the music for it, but that's what it is. We had Peter Ridd on yesterday. We haven't received too many hate
Did
mail
you?
at the moment. People aren't
You'll
stoning.
get some.
Yeah, we're hoping. We're hoping. No, but Peter Ridd, and I said to him, I said, these scientists, they might get hold of you after watching this, having a few drinks under the belt, and let rip, because the scientists, which they shouldn't, but it's like a gravy train. We'll say what the government says. We'll back what the government says. We'll do another study at the end after 2 years, after you've given me a mill. There's no results, but I got $1 million, and we'll do another study, and it goes on and on and on.
But Mike, when are we going to hold them to account for what they've said already? I mean, it wasn't long ago they said that children wouldn't know what snow was. I had 50 centimeters of snow here, right here, on this veranda. Well, not on the veranda, but beside me.
But I mean, but if you look, and I agree though, but there's us and there's a few others, and I always say that the only way independent media can be strong, and that was the idea behind TNT, they were massacred from within, and we were, and you know all about that anyway. But the only way to go head on with legacy media is to be like legacy media, as big as, but you are telling the truth. And everyone says, oh, it's easy to tell the truth. It's not, because everyone's got their own version of the truth, and instead of the actual facts thereof. So back to the climate risk and the climate report and stuff, I don't see any legacy media doing what they can to tell the truth. They're just following the government narrative, aka COVID. Oh, we'll get some money from government for promoting this. And then you have independent media. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in independent media, because most of them, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to be a star. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to be a star. And the ego far outweighs their intent or their talent. And I think that's the problem. What do we do in Australia? When you say accountability, they're not going to be held accountable. They're going to go willy-nilly and do what they can. Unless we have, and this is where Barnaby comes in, so he's not going to escape this at all, unless we have better opposition.
I mean, yeah, I think that he's so restrained though in terms of what he can do. Like, they've pulled him back. Like, I mean, I'm sure you guys, well, everyone. I'll just refresh anyone who doesn't recall this. But during the election campaign, he was not allowed outside of his electorate in New England, which was great for us. He got a massive swing to him, and we were just able to just drive around and campaign, and it was great. I didn't lose him for 3 months like I normally do in an election cycle. But now he's been relegated to the backbench with people like Matt Canavan, who Matt Canavan is, and again, former staffer, but he of Matt's. And so I have worked with him very closely. He is someone who knows that energy portfolio inside and out. And why isn't he on the front bench, Mike? Why isn't he on the front bench?
Why don't you ask Susan Lee? Or is that, it used to be Lay, and now it's Lee.
It is Lay. No, it is Lay. I think that it's just people. Her name is Susan Lay. I think that people in the mainstream, I don't think they know, which is another issue.
You have a Lee out of a Lay.
Yeah, no, it's a Lay. Susan Lee rhymes with hay. But so we've got Jacinta now on the backbench. We've got Matt now on the backbench. We've got Colin Boyce, who is a member for Flynn. He should be on the front bench, and he is not. We have some people who are erudite and well researched, and they are in the background and not part of the conversation. They're cut out of the conversation. They don't really want them at the front. They want a breed of coalition. They're calling them the new generation, or they want generational change is what they're saying. And basically they're saying to the others, whether they're millennials, like Matt is only a couple of years older than me. He's technically a young person.
28.
But they're saying, yeah, jokes. They're saying, we want generational change, but then they're replacing them with people who are, much older than your Barnabys and your Matts and your Jacintas. So I think that they're in a real quandary because they don't know who they are right now. That's the biggest issue. They don't know who they are, and they don't know what they believe in. The parties, so the people who hand out for you on pre-poll and the people who pre-select you, those are the guys who have gone and they've said, we don't want net zero. And they've I was in the room when the New South Wales Nuts voted against net zero. Then a couple of weeks later, the Queensland LNP voted against net zero. And, before that, it was the South Australian Libs and the Western Australian Libs. At a party level, every single state I think bar Victoria, so don't quote me on that, but bar Victoria, I think, has voted against net zero. And yet the parliamentary wing of all of these parties, whether it's state or federal, are still going with this net zero phenomenon, and they seem to believe that we can change the way we eat, and we can change the way that we work, and we can change the way that we run a household, and it will cost less, even though there's some cognitive dissonance there, because our bills are just soaring, and they're still saying, oh, renewables are the cheapest. Well, they're not. It's very easy. Just look at your power bill and you will see that it's not the cheapest. So I don't know what we do. I think that I feel like we're fighting. Sometimes I feel like we're screaming against just into the ether and no one is listening. It's like that old man screams at clouds, you know?
What's
That's what
wrong
we
with
are today. Old lady screams at clouds.
I bark at the moon? No. Look, we are running out of time, but you know what this is like. It's like you get into this magnificent conversation, then you have to stop. I just want to get your thoughts quickly on the e-safety commissioner, and I believe she has a strong connection to the CIA, that's public knowledge. But it's why would you want someone ex-CIA or connection with looking after freedom of
Isn't
speech?
she ex-Twitter as well? Is
Oh,
she
she's
ex-Twitter?
everything. She's a twit. Anyway, but the
I'll
other
tell you,
thing- sorry,
I have some big problems with this legislation.
it's terrible,
Uh,
and it's not going to work anyway. But Elbow is gone to New York. He's going to New York to the UN to tell them how great thou art, going to stop all under 16s and have this safety net for children and teenagers. He'll be able to, as the Conservative Communications Minister spokesperson said for the Libs, and she said, government must control the internet. We must control. Tell me what's wrong with that.
Oh, everything's wrong with it. I think the biggest problem is that this isn't going to. I don't think this is going to help kids whatsoever. And so, and I say that as a mum. I've got a bunch of kids at my house, and I've got 2 boys of my own. There's the thing is, using the parent controls that you already have available to you, you can restrict them from stuff that you don't want them to see. The number one thing is, if you're an actual parent who is watching your children, then you don't need the government to come in and say, oh no, this isn't going to work. All this is really is a front for everyone to bring in digital ID, and so that everyone has to have their digital ID, publicly consumed. I think that one of the big issues that I've got with it is that if you use the kid controls that are available now, you can control very much what they're exposed to. But under this, it would kind of and the thing is that I've tried to look into this a bunch of times, but the government itself doesn't seem to know how they're going to implement this. And when they have tried to bring in people who were going to do like an AI facial recognition, they came back and said, oh, these 7-year-olds were let in because the computer system thought they were like 30-year-old women or whatever. I don't think you're going to get any certainty from that. But as a parent, there is no way I'd be relying on the government to decide what messages my child gets.
Yep. I think, again, there's so much to talk about, and the invitation is there. We should do this more often, Vikki. We can't pay you, but you can.
We should. No, we should. Well, it's a rare time that my kids are actually quiet, so I don't know what's going on. But I do know one thing, and that's that they're not looking at stuff on the internet that they shouldn't be. And it's very simple. You have parental controls. Use them.
That's it. Parenting 101. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you look around, and look at the trouble, and we'll talk about this next time, all the young people running around, all the 12-year-olds and 13 and 14-year-olds that are nicking people's cars and causing violence and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I was just researching my article for the Saturday Telegraph before you called, and I was talking to the member for Northern Tablelands, who's Brendan Moylan, who one of his constituents runs a motel in Moree, and he was stabbed, and then hours later, the 13-year-old who stabbed him was given bail and was walking the streets. You know, and this is Moree. And do you want to know something? None of the government people stay in Moree. They stay in Warrialda or they stay at Narrabri, but they will not stay in Moree because they know the risk is too high.
Well, Cam, and I think you might have had Cam as my panel guy here doing marvellous job. He used to work in Moree, and he's not there either. So there you are. Look, if somebody wants to find out, because I do have to go, I've got an ex-policeman coming up, Harry Miller, and he's got some amazing things to talk about. So maybe you should have it playing in the background, and you'll be quite shocked with what's happening in London with the police. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Vikki, how do they do that? And before you tell us that, was that just Barnaby or a kookaburra in the background? I wasn't sure if that was Barnaby laughing. Was a kookaburra?
No. He's at a branch meeting in Tamworth. No, that would have been a kookaburra. We've got quite a few. We've got so many beautiful birds here. Anyway, so good to see you again, Mike.
Now, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that, Vic?
You don't have to, but if you really want to, you can go to Vikki.Campion. I have a website. I don't know what it is. Don't worry about it. I have a column in the Weekend News Corp papers. Have a look at that. I need to start doing more stuff online.
You do. You said that.
I've got mum. I'm busy. I've got to do PNC stuff and mum stuff, and
Good on you.
I'm busy tradwifing. I'm joking. I'm not. All right, I'm going to let you go before I embarrass myself.
Stop it. Vikki Campion, thank you very much. Coming up next, Harry Miller here on The World Today.
We're today's news talk, The World Today.
And chat's going a bit crazy. Yes, Vikki Campion, amazing, and she did a very, very nice job here on at that stage TNT. And who knows what's in the wind? Keep hearing little things, but still here, plodding on. Before we get into Harry Miller, I have an enormous amount of respect for him. I just want to play you. This is something from Talk TV that was just recent. I'll play you this, and I'll come back to Harry, and we'll talk about a couple of really serious things with the UK police and the Met Police. Cam, could you play offensive tweets, please?
Police chiefs asking for more individual officer discretion strikes me as not necessarily a good thing.
Well, police have always had discretion, as you rightly point out, and they've already got the law. We don't need a change in the law. What we need is for the police officers to understand the law. We need police officers to understand that being offensive is not and never has been an offence, and they have no right whatsoever to start interfering with our rights to speak, our rights to be offensive, just because somebody says, "Oh, I've got hurty feeling." The law does not need changing. What needs to happen, by the way, I'm very thankful that Shabana Mahmood has sort of clarified this. What needs to happen is police need to start understanding the law and applying the law. And furthermore, there needs to be fines for police officers who disobey the law. In the same way that you and I would be fined if we do 80 in a 70 zone, then when police officers breach our Article 10 rights, when they clearly and repeatedly breach our right to say something which is not against the law, then those officers, individual officers, need fining.
But often, you're often talking about, as an individual PC who's been sent by, they'd be sent by a more senior officer to go and, appear on the doorstep of Alison Pearson, the Telegraph journalist, or your doorstep. They're not just doing it off their own back. So who should we be blaming?
Well, it should be both, actually, because individual officers do have agency. It is the job of an individual officer to serve the Crown, as they swore to do, to the best of their ability. If you've been ordered to go and knock on the door of somebody for saying something, for tweeting something, if I was that officer, I'd be saying, I want that, or I want that as a written order to me. before I do anything, because I am not going to breach somebody's Article 10 rights just because you, sir, have told me to do it.
And Article 10 rights enshrine our freedom of expression and here's the thing though, we've had before, we had our Home Secretaries before, the last one, we had about 17 of them under the Tories, but our Home Secretary saying very, very, very clearly that, that we shouldn't be arresting people and questioning people for non-crime hate incidents, and they shouldn't be being recorded. That was something that came in under the Tories in 2014 in the College of Policing. They're the people who are training people up and approving people and insisting everyone, signs up to all the DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion nonsense. Now, College of Policing were told this by Home Secretary explicitly. They've just carried on doing it as they choose. We're constantly told by the Home Secretary and by the Prime Minister, we don't have any say over what the police do. It's just about the law. So does the Home Secretary saying this mean anything at all? Because it seems to me police chiefs and the College of Policing are doing whatever the hell they want.
Well, they are entirely unaccountable, and the College of Policing in particular, they treat the whole thing about non-crime hate incidents and hate crime incidents. None of it is based upon evidence. When you ask them, where is the body of evidence, the academic evidence, the literature to support this, they haven't got any. It's simply an article of faith which they refused to put down. They operate more like the Vatican than they do a rational, reasonable.
Well, that's it. The justification was given to sort of, if you can stop people saying hateful things, you can stop extremist violence along the way. But there's just no evidence of that at all. Police chiefs asking for more individual officer discretion strike.
Kill that's it. It decided to jump. That's great. Harry Miller is a former police officer and now the co-chief executive officer, which is CEO, at Fair Cop, a group of individuals who have come together over shared concerns about police attempts to criminalise people for expressing opinions that don't contravene any laws. And just following on from that interview on Talk TV, the police seem to be, and I've got another one which I won't play now because I haven't got time, but the police seem to be doing all they can to shut you up, shut anybody up.
Yeah, they are. They're terrified of freedom of expression. I mean, they support the ECHR in theory. All the left is terrified of his leaving the ECHR, and yet they will not respect Article 10. They won't. They don't like it. They don't like the fact that the average member of the British public is able to say what they think without consequence. And that's the way it is in this country. We are allowed to be insulting. We are allowed to be offensive. We are allowed to be ironic. We are allowed flourishes of rhetoric without fearing interference from the state. Now, of course, Article 10 is a qualified right. You can't walk into a cinema and shout fire. Of course you can't. It's qualified. You are not allowed to incite violence against people. You are not allowed to target somebody, stalk them and harass them. Of course you aren't. Article 10 was never set out to do that. But what you are allowed to do, you are allowed to criticize ideas. You are allowed to criticize politics. You are allowed to criticize ideology. And what it does, it allows all ideas to be criticized. And the police do not like that. And so, independently of the law, they have decided to come down on those of us who criticize, lambast, lampoon, mock ideas which they don't like. And there's a consequence for us to pay by a knock on the door.
I was going to play a post before on X. Some of us still call it a tweet. And the guy was talking and he said he believes, and I looked at it quickly, I didn't have a whole lot of time, that he said the video itself was from 5 years ago and that they were using that to make a point. Now, heaven help me if I'm going to say that the police are going to be sneaky, but if they needed to make a point, and the actual 3 million get together was pretty well behaved from what I could see. There's a few numbnuts out there that wanted to create a few scenes, but out of 3 million, it wasn't very many at all. If you needed to make a point on how bad these people are, as your mayor has said, racist people, you would, and there was no footage. Then, if you found old footage of some violence to make that point, do you think that could actually happen with the police? Do you think they would actually use old footage to show you how bad they were, and why would they do that?
Well, the problem in the internet age is, I mean, I've been caught out with this myself. Sometimes you think that you are tweeting something new, and it actually turns out to be something old or something fake. Well, the sensible thing to do there is to put your hands up and say, you know what, I did not do my due diligence on this one. I should have done. I at face value. We were wrong, and you take it down and you apologise. So I do have some sympathy, a little bit of sympathy with that, not much, a little bit. Now, the fact of the matter is, when you get a large crowd of people, particularly on a day where it's not raining, particularly where maybe one or two have had a little bit of a drink, you are bound to get a minority who kick off. This happens in every single crowd that ever was. It doesn't matter whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, whether you're at a football match, whether you're at a pop concert. It doesn't matter. There will always be this minority who have too much to drink, get too boisterous, have a fight. There are also bad actors there as well, bad faith actors who are there looking for a fight. But the fact of the matter is, you look at the UK rally on Saturday. The number of arrests there were absolutely minuscule compared, say, to the arrests that occurred just a few weeks before at the Notting Hill Carnival. They're minute against, say, the arrests that were made with the multiple pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic marches that go on through London week after week after week. So what the politicians have done, and what the Mayor of London in particular has done, he has weaponised a largely peaceful crowd in order to make a political point. And in doing so, what he's done, he's demonised otherwise rational, sane, happy English people. And what is the likely consequence of that? When you demonise somebody, when you accuse a group of people of being something or doing something which they have not done, then the likely effect is that you radicalise them and they become more like you're accusing them of in the first place. I think this is deliberate. I think Mayor Khan is doing this because, for reasons which I cannot really imagine, he wants some form of race riot. He wants to ramp up the heat. I don't know why. Maybe so that it gives him more power. Maybe so that he can bring in a police state. I don't know. But that is likely to be the consequence of his speech. I mean, you talk about the consequence of speech. Sadiq Khan, who believes in hate speech, he believes in the whole nonsense around it. Well, if he believes that, what is he doing? Ramping up the temperature by pointing the finger at hundreds of thousands of peace-loving, peaceful British people who are just out there waving their flags, having a nice time, and he's calling them far-right racists. What is he doing?
But all governments around the world, I mean, and let's go back on that. Governments in Australia, we had a whole bunch of protests. It was weekend after weekend of protests, and politicians from both sides, oh, they're racist, racist, racist. You know, high voices and low voices, but they were saying the same thing, that these people who are out peacefully marching and saying we don't want our country to go down the gurgler are being labelled as racist. And you're dead right that what that does, it makes those normal people into what they are being accused of being, and that's, you know, minor ratbags and stuff like that. How do you think the police? Because I've seen a couple of videos, and again we have to understand that it is 3 million people. I thought overall it wasn't a bad outcome. I thought the police, there's a few examples of a few getting a bit overexcited and vice versa with the crowd, but I think it made a point. In broadcast, if you get a complaint, you normally say, well, that person's complained, there are 10 others that are thinking the same thing. So if you look at 3 million people and do that same sort of math equation, what you have is, if there are 3 million, then multiply that by 10. You actually have about half of the UK population that are agreeing with what the march was all about. What does the government do now? And what does the Okay, local. What does a local government do, and what does your UK government do? Do they put their head in the sand and bunker down and become, oh, we're not right, we're not wrong, they're wrong, we're right, or do they say, okay, we messed up? What do you think will happen now?
I don't know what will happen. I mean, I think one of the great things about politicians is that they are very, very weak. As a rule, they chase popularity more than they follow principle. So I think that if I agree with your summation of the figures. I think number 10, for instance, they will be having a long, hard think about this. And I think they are absolutely terrified of the local elections, which will take place next year. And I think they've got an eye on the general election, which will take place in maybe 3, 4, 5 years. So because they're weak and because they're unprincipled, I think there is a reasonable chance that they will take note and they will make some form of amendment. And they will go some way to appeasing the flag wavers. They will go some way to appeasing those of us who are on the side of the flag wavers, because it's in their own interest to do so, not based on principle, based on self-preservation. The problem that we have in this country, and I'm sure it's the same in many countries, is that regardless of what a prime minister wants, regardless of what the House of Commons wants, regardless of what the minister wants, you have this thing called the civil service. And the civil service are a law unto themselves. They do precisely what they want. They block good initiatives by the government, and they promote initiatives which the government doesn't like. It is a shadow government in actual fact. We also have now, of course, a secondary problem, which is the judiciary. The judiciary are acting as if they are the government. So the first thing that I read this morning when I woke up was that how the judiciary have prevented one of the flights out of the UK taking migrants away from this country, the unlawful migrants away from this country, those who have entered our country illegally. The judiciary have put a stop to it yet again. So we have to sort that out. We've got to work out in our country who rules. Are we a parliamentary democracy? Or are we a judicial theocracy, or whatever you call that? I think the judiciary have got far too big for their boots. Now, it doesn't help, of course. The Attorney General, Lord Hermer, I think it is. He's mad for judicial rule. Well, that's down on Starmer because Starmer appointed him. So we need to get rid of these judicial activists. And I say that because, in actual fact, I am a judicial activist. But we cannot have Parliament being constantly trumped by a unelected judiciary. We can't have that. So I think Keir Starmer, I think the Home Secretary, and by the way, I have a lot of hopes for this Home Secretary. I disagree with her fundamentally when it comes to what she said about Palestine and about Israel, but she said these things before she was the Home Office minister. And taking one of the great states of office does tend to have a sobering effect on your previous rhetoric. We see that in politicians all the time. So I have a degree of hope in her, and I hope that she takes the civil service and the judiciary to task, and that she is good to her word, and that she starts protecting British borders. But we have a huge problem. And getting back to the point about Article 10 and free speech, we have to be able to speak our truth. We have to be able to campaign. We have to be able to petition our politicians. And by turn, those politicians need to be able to instruct the authorities to do as the British people, as our sovereign nation, as Parliament dictates that we do, says that we do, and follow through on some of the rhetoric. That's what needs to happen. But whether it happens or not, I don't know. As a rule on this, I'm a little bit pessimistic because it seems as though the left always finds some way to scupper even the best intentions. So there we go.
One of the first things, because you mentioned on our last conversation, I think it was Blair that insisted that all the police go to university, or the new ones. And you made mention, you saw what happened then. Well, looking at what's happening at the moment with the police, surely they could be charged with impersonating someone that passed a course, because they're actually doing some. They're not acting as they should. Even if they had done the study, and the study said you got to do that and do that and do that, they're doing mostly the opposite. They're not protecting. They're not serving. They have an agenda, whether it's within the force. And here's the next thing for you as we wind this up. Looking at the force, we know what institutions are like. They can either follow what is required by their large number of people, or they can go within their own selves into the shell, and they can then start adopting the law as per their requirements. So therefore, if you show footage of this, or if you talk about this, they could go after you. Right back to what we're talking about, your free speech. If you write something, then you've upset someone, and you can be then charged for whatever crime they want to do. So they could do that too. They could double down, and government and the police and the civil service could say, so what? We run this country. We're going to do what we like, and we're going to make your lives miserable. You can't do a thing to us because we are here for another 3.5 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, getting back to what the police studying, etc. What are the police studying? That is the question. There's no doubt about it that they are studying. They're studying something, but I tell you what, it isn't. It's not British law. It is not. When I was a police officer, you used to have a little book called Points to Prove. If you thought somebody had committed an offence, you would look through and go, right, I think it's this offence. You would then open your book, if you hadn't learnt it by heart, which I had, and you would look at the points to prove. What do I need to prove this offence? They're not doing that. What they're doing, they're reading propaganda put out by the College of Policing. They're reading propaganda put out by Stonewall and Amnesty and all these human rights groups. They are giving a primacy to something other than the law, and that is the feeling of individuals. This is a problem of intellect. It's a problem of moral fibre. It's a problem of leadership, and we need to sort all those things out. Now, the suggestion that I made to Julia Hartley-Brewer yesterday that we start fining individual police officers when they get particularly Article 10 issues wrong, because that's what needs to happen. We need to start hitting them in the pocket. Now, look, we've tried it from the top down. We've tried taking the chief constables to court, the College of Policing to court, the government to court. We've done that, and it hasn't worked. So we're going to have to try a different approach. We're going to have to try a bottom-up approach and start fining individual officers a significant sum for when they do this wrong. Ignorance is no excuse. You go down the motorway at 80 miles an hour and it says only 70. You can't say, oh, I didn't realise. You get fined. Boom, out of your pocket. That's what happens. You do it twice, you do it 3 times, boom, you lose your licence. That's what needs to happen. Police officers need to be fined again, and then they need to lose their warrant card if they continue doing this. That seems to me to be the only way. And then we would have a police force that is worthy of the great British public.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I don't know about the fining of the police officers, because I think you would have all hell would break loose.
Good. Absolutely. Why should police officers get away with being able to repeatedly breach a line in the sand called Article 10? But if you and I breach a line on the road, then we get fined. Why should they be able to do that? Why?
Yeah. Good point. And we've run out of time, but gone way over, but I apologise for the late start. I'd like to continue this discussion on that very point very shortly, because I think there are so many things that need answering. And I think talk is at our stage of life. It's about all we can do at the moment, because I have no power. I have just the voice and the TV network. You have more power than I, but I would love to discuss this just to find out where we can go and how to make society better, because unless you have a good police force, you're going to have absolute garbage in the street, and society will fail. It will fail unless you have that. I mean, and the UK copper used to be a great copper. They were part of the community, and what's happened to that? Before we close down, what's happened to that?
We've taken on a more European model where the police have become a sort of state-sponsored soft culture. I mean, they look like the military now. And by the way, I don't have a problem with police officers wearing stab vests. I don't have a problem with them carrying tasers. It's necessary. But if you're going to do that for very good reasons, you have got to preserve the relationship even more so with the British public, which means if you're going to wander around looking like the military, then you have got to be, in terms of how you operate, very unlike the military. You've got to be more like the public in order to give them faith and confidence that you are not a militia. And the way to do that is by upholding the law. Simple as that. So uphold it without fear or favor by not allowing on your uniform anything other than your name, rank, and number, and possibly a little badge of the thin blue line which commemorates your fallen comrades. Other than that, no symbolism at all. Because the second you adopt a symbol other than your name, rank, and number, and an indication as to what force you are in, you then run the risk, the very real risk, of being associated as the military wing of a political cause. And in this country, we cannot afford to have that. We must not allow that to happen. And that's why Fair Cop has been so active in this regard. And by the way, it's also why we've been so successful, because when you lay out the arguments in front of a court, they are absolutely insurmountable. They're just straightforward. The judges see it all the time, and that's why Fair Cop wins, and wins again.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Harry Mill, if somebody wants to find out more about Fair Cop and yourself, how do they do that?
They go onto X and they look up at We Are Fair Cop. They'll find us there.
Absolutely fantastic. A pleasure, and very illuminating and enlightening. Thank you very much. This is The World Today.